Hello, Wake Up New Zealand, Sakey speaking. Well, the fact checkers. They're certainly fact checking Barry the Whistleblower. These fact checkers I'm talking about, one is an academic, another one is a global activist, and the other one, well, is part of the academic that's around Indigenous Maori. So anyone can be a fact checker. Only some get paid big wealth for it and they get favours for it. But all you've got to do is expose the truth. But what do these do? They actually take down the truth. They actually target the truth. And they call it fake news. So courageous Barry Young, the whistleblower, sought no rewards. He just is a humble man doing his job as senior statistician, and he found out this evil information of many people dying post-jab. He is not a protester. He's a quiet man, a humble man, a courageous man. But he would be number one target. So who comes out the woodwork to target him? We have APP, fact checkers. Now they're part of the international fact checking network in the US. Now all these fact checkers are part of that network. Okay, so APP Australia has been targeting Barry. So looking a bit further, I looked at the British Medical Journal, and I often look at that because it's been around since about 1840. It's very influential, and they seek advice, like many other medical professionals do, from the Institute for Scientific Freedom. And they mentioned just recently about international scientific freedom, saying that scientific data should be free from financial conflicts. All data should be published, and all data should include study protocols, should be freely accessible. So that allows other experts to analyze it in scientific ways, scientific methods, and give it international peer reviews. But obviously, they don't want that with this data of Barry's. So fact checkers are biased, shroud the truth, and attack the truth and call it fake news. Now, this is what they've done to Barry. Fact checkers are now targeting both Barry and Liz, but more so Barry. Why would the police surround his house and knock his door down? What are they so frightened of? And Barry said, they're not like ordinary police. You wouldn't think they were ordinary police. They're different. Well, how different are they? Who are they? Obviously, Barry's become very important and had very big information that is likely to get a lot of people into deep shite. Otherwise, they would never have done it. So the focus for fact checkers, particularly APP, Australian fact checkers who have fact checked Barry and targeted him, well, they must also be working surely with Te Whatu Ora, One Health New Zealand. Because why would they get involved? Obviously, fact-checking organisations, company have complete immunity, because trying to fact-check them, they won't have that, will they? And the government won't be coming back, or the platform holders, social platform holders won't say, oh, no, we can't believe you. No, they just allow the truth to be taken down. That's the narrative. So, accountable to no one, irresponsible, never mind the harm and death caused. They've got no conscience. So, they obviously have their toolbox of fake checking materials, data, and all important, want to stop the real news of being exposed, to protect leftists, socialists, leaders of the UN and their cohorts, the WEF. They never acknowledge or apologise for wrongful judgments, their inaccuracies, false judgments. They are totally inflexible. So worldwide, there's hundreds of millions of dollars that are actually funding these fact-checker organisations. And they happily receive the wealth from bureaucratic groups, particularly in the state, FDA, CIA, CDC, and the alphabet of governments across the world, hundreds of millions of dollars. So they shield the evildoers' door. They are the evildoers. So fact checkers are very critical and crucial for the governments because they don't want the people actually getting to know what the real news is when they know, the government know that they are harming the community. So, I mean, mainstream news is well known for peddling the fake news. And we hear that from Winston Peters now in Parliament. The IFNC International Network of Fact Checkers had the power to hijack, dominate mainstream platforms like Facebook, and even to actually influence them to change their rules and regulations around those people on those platforms. It depends what the flavour of the day is and where the funding is coming from. So, IFCN, the International Network of Fact Checkers, are politically biased, also commercially biased, of course, and both. Depends on, as I say, the flavour of the day, what bureaucrats, etc., etc. So in November 2018, you had the BBC made some shoddy research, put some shoddy research on TV, blaming nationalism for the rise in fake news. Well, they were forced to backtrack on that and published an article debunking that research. They relied on the research they got from fact checkers of the International Network of Fact Checkers. And that's what happened there. And IFCN, they're not an authentic mechanism to curb so-called fake news. They do a lot of harm in people's lives and obviously cause a lot of death. If that's the case, you know, they're fact checking these people, these doctors, these professionals, the British Medical Journal. Think of the damage that they're doing. So, International Fact Checkers Network are also other fact checkers beside the fact checker network. Well, it's supposed to be a fact checker network, but it's actually global and it's on New Zealand, and it's Aotearoa Factism. Students are taught to develop data that's crucial to achieving the global agenda, the global goal data point that partners with two UN agencies, UNESCO and UNICEF. And they advertise, be a factivist, the world's largest lesson referring to the global goals, obviously Agenda 2030. Then there's Dr. Rawiri Tanui, a semi-retired academic, researcher, independent writer, supporter, writer, promoter of Indigenous peoples concept. UN stuff, you drip. Tanui was taken to task on the 14th of April this year when he wrote an article, and the Holocaust Foundation condemned his statement. And of course, Tanui is a member of the National Anti-Racism Task Force. His statement referenced a gross misinterpretation of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Scoot News reported that he'd tweeted it in April 2023, and what he wrote was, Hitler exercised an unfettered right to free speech, and look where it ended. However, it's well known and well documented, and it's evidence that the suppression of free speech was a central component to Hitler. Just look at what Goebbels did. The strategies speaking out against Hitler's regime, dissenters were prosecuted, tortured, and often put to death, exterminated. Goebbels used propaganda control of the media. The silencing of dissent was central to the advancement of the Nazi cause. And that is well known. But does any of that ring a bell to you when I talk to you about that? Think what's going on now. It almost sounds like a Nazi cause, doesn't it? So April the 13th, 2023, Tanui tweeted the anti-Semitic persecution of the Jewish people and the equal and opposite suppression of the Palestinian people among the saddest causes of genocide over the last 100 years. An apt, credible response followed this tweet. There was a response to this. And it said, it is a straightforward falsehood to suggest that Israel has committed genocide against the Palestinians. In addition, this is profoundly cynical use of Holocaust for political means. So using the deaths of all those Jews, those millions of Jews, the extermination, the torture in that, and referring it to the Palestinians for political ends. This is Dr. Tanui. He was accused of unbecoming conduct as a member of the National Anti-Racism Task Force. That's interesting. So Stuff New Zealand did an article on Dr. Tanui entitled, How the Rain Falls Differently Upon Maori, as Willie Jackson announced $115 million $150 million post-Cyclone Gabrielle iwi Maori Relief Fund. So Mike Hoskins criticised the announcement and saying it was unjustified. Special race-based funding that whilst extreme weather events impact geographically over the regions differently, the rain does not fall differently on a Maori head than it does any other head. And the same goes for flooding. Whether in an area that's more iwi, Maori, ancestry, or in another area, if you're going to flood, you're going to flood if you're in that geographical area. So this is the rubbish that's going on. So this is the Dr. Tanui who targets Barry, the whistleblower. So it also, at the time the jabs were going on, Dr. Tanui was a key figure on pushing the COVID jab on Maori, as he reported in mainstream media about low vaccine rates for Maori, pushing increased vaxxers into the arms of 5 to 11-year-olds and 18 to 49-year-olds. And he is linked to Australian Government, National Indigenous Australian Agency and Aotearoa New Zealand domestic responses to COVID-19, 19th March 2020 to July 2021. Iwi Maori collaboration with an Australian government. So the BMJ, British Medical Journal, authored an article about Pfizer vax trial and censoring of serious data integrity and patient safety, making a reference to Ventavia a contract research company and their poor clinical research trial practices of COVID-19. These were very serious concerns, and a year before they wrote their article, BMJ, that it had been reported to CDC and FDA, and they ignored it. They decided they would not investigate Ventavia trial sites. So a year later, BMJ obtained dozens of internal company documents, photos, audio recordings, and emails that reference materials revealing a host of poor clinical research trial practices occurring at Ventavia that could impact data integrity and patient safety. So British Medical Journal commissioned an investigative reporter to write the story in the BMJ Journal, published the 2nd of 11th, 2021. This was followed by a legal review and also international high editorial review. Many readers who tried to read that, they were censored, they were flagged, they were warned on Facebook about reading this article, they were threatened to be taken down, mainstream media platforms posts were flagged, independent fact checkers saying this information could mislead people. So and also Facebook Fact Check, a main social media platform, contracted a fact checker being the name of the fact checker being Lead Stories. British Medical Journal found that the fact checkers were to be inaccurate, incompetent, and irresponsible. That's what BMJ said. So they sent a letter to Mark Zuckerberg and said, this is nonsensical. The fact checker didn't state what was even wrong with their information, and they said that the BMJ said that they were inaccurate, incompetent with their information, and how they had character assassinated the British Medical Journal article about Pfizer vaccine trials. But what happened? Nothing. So they wrote this letter. I have a copy of that letter, and and the fact checkers still continue as they are politically and commercially biased, said BMJ. They have urged Facebook to act over incompetent fact check of their research information that's on Facebook. But what's happened? They also urge parent company Meta to reconsider its investment in an approach to fact-checking overall, following other examples of incompetence. All this incompetence on mainstream media and incompetence on social media, this is what's happening. So rather than investing a proportion of Meta's substantial profits to help ensure the accuracy of medical information shared through social media, you have apparently delegated responsibility to people incompetent in carrying out this crucial task, BMJ said to Mark Zuckerberg. The full letter to Mark Zuckerberg can be found following link on my website. So this information can be found there. I have all the links. So Wake Up New Zealand.